Today I'm going to tell you a story that comes from right here in Korea. It's called Rods and Turnips. Long, long ago, there lived a man named Mr. Kim near Jeju Castle. And he was a farmer, but he worked very hard. He saved his money. And one day, he called his oldest son, Jiwon. And he said, Jiwon, I'm going to send you to Seoul, and I want you to study for the civil service exam. You see, at that time in Korea, if you take the civil service exam and you pass, you got a job in the government. And that was the best job a person could get. So Jiwon went to Seoul, he studied and studied, and he took the test, and he passed it. He went back home and he told his father. His father was extremely happy. And he told Jiwon, I'm going to send you back to Seoul, and I want you to go to the minister and get your job. And so he took almost all the money he had left in his money chest, and he gave it to Jiwon. He said, Jiwon, once you start making money, you have to send some of it back for us. So Jiwon left, and he went to Seoul. The morning he was to go see the minister, he got up extremely early and he went down to the market and he found a gift. Because you see, the tradition was to take a gift to the minister when you went to get your appointment. And so he took his gift and he gave it to the minister. And the minister was a greedy man. He wanted more gifts. So he told Jiwon, come back tomorrow. Surely I'll have a job then. So early the next morning, Jiwon got up. He went to the market. He bought another gift. He took it to the minister. He presented it to the minister. And the minister said, come back tomorrow. And he did this day after day after day, month after month after month. And finally, Jiwon was out of money. And he had to go home and tell his father what happened. He left. He was walking. He didn't even have money to buy food. So, near late in the day, he was getting just outside of Seoul, and he came upon an old man and an old woman. They said, young man, why are you so sad? And Jiwon told them about the minister, and the man said, we've heard stories about this minister. He's a very greedy man. But if you'll come with us, we'll take you home, we'll feed you, we'll give you a place to sleep, and in the morning you can continue your trip home. So Jiwon went with them. They gave him food to eat. And they gave him the warmest place on the floor to sleep. But early the next morning, Jiwon woke up. And the old woman had her ironing rods. And she was hitting him. Pop, 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 pop. And every time she hit him, part of his body turned into a cow. First, one leg turned into a cow leg, and then the other. Then his left arm was a cow leg, and then his right. Then his torso became that of a cow, and finally he had a cow's head. Now, he could still think like Jiwon, but all he could say was, "Mrrr, mrrr." The old man put a rope around his neck. And he took him to the market. And he tried to sell him, but he was a greedy old man. And he wanted a lot of money for him. So all day he stood there without a buyer. And finally, as the sun got down and it was dark, a man came by. He could hardly see the cow, so he bought it. And he took Jiwon the cow home with him. But on the way he got hungry and decided he wanted some food to eat. So he stopped at a restaurant. But he forgot to tie Jiwon up. So, as soon as he went in, Jiwon got hungry. He looked across the road into the field that was full of turnips, and he took off running. And he got to the field and he started eating. And every time he took a bite of a turnip, part of his body turned back into a man. First one leg, then the other. Then he had a human arm and another. Then he had his torso, and finally, Jiwon had his head back. He had a great idea. He snuck back to the old man and old woman's house. He snuck inside. He took the ironing rods and he left. Then he went to the minister's house and he covered his face And he snuck into the minister's bedroom. And he started hitting the minister. Bop, 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 bop. And every time he hit the minister turned into a cow. First one leg, then the other. Then his left arm was a cow leg, and then his right. Then he had a cow's torso, and finally he had a cow's head. And G1 ran out and hid. In the morning, he heard the servant scream, and G1 went running into the inner circle. What's wrong? What's wrong? And the servant looked at him and said, oh, our minister, he's turned into a cow. What are we going to do? G1 just stood back, crossed his arms, and said, that's not a problem. This happens in my village all the time. I know exactly what to do. But the minister is going to have to agree to give me a job if I do this. What was the minister going to do? He was a cow. He couldn't talk, so all he could do was shake his head yes, and moo, moo. So the servant said, okay. G1 didn't exactly trust the minister. The minister had already cheated him. So he gave a list of herbs to his servant and said, go get these. And when nobody was looking, he chopped up some turnips and he stuck them in his pocket. When they returned with the herbs, he snuck the herbs into the bags where nobody could see, and he gave them to the minister, who was a cow. Now, he didn't trust the minister, so he didn't want the minister to know that it was really only the turnips that were going to turn him back into a man. That's why he sent the man for the herbs. And he gave them to the minister. And the minister started eating them. And every time he took a bite, part of his body turned back into a human. First one leg, then the other. Then one arm, then another. Then a torso. And finally the minister had his head back. Now, this time, the minister didn't cheat G1. He gave G1 a job in the government that day. The best job he could find. And he gave G1 all of the money back for all the gifts he had given him, with interest. And the minister and G1 lived happily ever after. And that's the story of rods and turnips.